Alright, hello, my name is Soulfire. I'll be talking about the Underfu Leng's expansion for Legend of the Five Rings. Excuse me, I can't talk today. Never can. Sorry about the camera work if the camera's not working too well. I have just a cheap computer for right now. So, it seems to be doing quite alright. So, as long as I can hear me well enough and you can see what I'm doing and the point gets across, I think we can just mark this off as a helpful video, hopefully. So what I was going to be talking about was how to play alone against the Underfu Leng's Shadow. So, for starts, you should know that the main keys in this form of gameplay to beat the Shadowlands are to break all 5 provinces or to deck them out of all of their dynasty cards. Dynasty deck, by the way, if you don't know what that is usually your characters and holdings. Characters being creatures, holdings being something that is added onto a province to give it more strength, making it harder to beat. There are sometimes also events, which is essentially a card that creates something happening to change the flow of the game. Although, if you don't know any of those, you should probably watch a video. Maybe I'll make one over how to play L5R, basically. Or, maybe I'll review the core set or something. I'm sure I'll figure that part out later, but for now, I'm going to assume you know how to play Legend of Five Rings against another player, and you're looking to see how to play it against the Shadowlands. So how I'd recommend starting is picking your warlord. There are 3 to choose from. There's Atsuko, Akuma, and the Obsidian Flower. So, out of these 3, I chose Akuma no Oni. And I would recommend double sleeving or putting them in card protectors just to keep them safer, because you only get one, and they are double-sided. One side for challenge, one side for cooperative. Cooperative is what we're focusing on today. Each one is a different type of battle. So cooperative is you're fighting together against an autonomous deck that is run by the deck itself, with just a mild assistance from you as you play against it. Cooperative also, I guess I would say, is less predictable and is more randomized to the cards and based on kind of luck of the draw. Challenge mode, however, is where a player will sit down and decide all of the choices for the Shadowlands and will fight you using the Shadowlands deck. Both are quite fun, but usually people find it quite hard to find another person who's willing to sit down for a couple hours and play a card game nowadays, which is sad, but it's even harder to get them to do it when 2 people are against you having fun and you're kind of sitting here and you're just like, oh, what choice do I make here now? So sometimes it'll be more fun just to play with the Shadowlands. I'm sure some people would enjoy it, but if you're not one of those people, it's always great to have the other option. So, how this deck works is each warlord you choose has a set of 5 provinces selected in the rule of play book of how to build and play your deck. So, choosing the Akuma no Oni, like I did, you get these 5 provinces all shuffled and face down at the beginning of the game. And all of your cards, your dynasty and your conflicts, will have a shadow play number on the bottom of the card that tells you actually a lot of different details. First, and the most important one, is if they belong in the deck. So for Akuma no Oni, you need all the 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s for the dynasty deck. So every single one of these should be a 1, 2, 3, or 4. And these. The conflict deck, however, should be 1s, 3s, 4, and 6. So you can see that represented down here. Then, if you noticed, these conflict deck cards also have a shadow number next to a ring. So the rings, of course, are the 5 elements represented in the Rokugan universe. I guess it doesn't really matter how you set them up, but I just played it for so long it feels weird to see it out of play. So of course you have the air ring, the earth ring, the fire ring, the water ring, and the void ring. And if you have those, you have your fate, or in this game money. I have some metal tokens, but usually they have pink ones for you. Honor, which I don't have a different token of, but honor tokens look like this. You should definitely have your taints. Tainted is very important for the Shadowlands. These come with the deck. When you buy it, you should have 2 dials, at least, depending on how many players you need, 1 for each player. You should have a start of turn indicator, or first player indicator token, for anybody who remembers it as that. That's actually very important because that indicates who goes first, attacks first, and buys first. And if you're playing on the cooperative mode, the Shadowlands will always go first. Always. For first round. And then, interesting thing about the Shadowlands is it is not like the standard decks in 05R. It is not like a standard player at all. So actually your warlord, being your most important character, is essentially like you in a way, instead of how it is represented as people think of it, like a champion. He's not necessarily a champion as much as he is exactly like how you are. He's the one directing the battle, telling his characters where to go, how much fate to put on them, where you're attacking, where you're defending, what you're attacking with. This is all orchestrated by your warlord. However, unlike you, obviously you can't turn into a card and come into the game. Your warlord can actually enter battle due to certain card effects. So, in the setup, they actually have your setup being automized to look something like this. I, however, personally disagree, because while this is alright, I do not think this is as open and helpful for when you're trying to figure out where everything is. When you have 2 or 4, 2 to 4 other people attacking this, and everybody's talking and working together, and they're pushing their guys forward and backward and everywhere, it's really hard to tell when there's 3 stacks of cards next to each other and characters everywhere, who's who and what's going on. So I find it more helpful to take it kind of like your standard L5R deck, because if you've played the game, you should be more used to it in this kind of setup. And have your Dynasty deck to your left, your Conflict deck to your right, your discards off to the side of each. It's familiar and helpful. That's just how it always has been, and that's what I would like it as. So I'd set my Warlord off to the side, much like you would with your Stronghold. And why that's helpful is because if he's in the same spot you usually put your Stronghold, regardless of what side. I know some people put him on the other side. It is easier to remember him being out of play. Or you could just put him entirely in a different area. But if you want him close by and just visible in case you have to read it or relook at it, because believe me, you'll forget certain things, then it's always helpful to have it somewhere where he's not in front of the character cards or with the rest of the army, So how this works is you set your 5 provinces, you shuffle them at random, you don't look at them. Because you're playing cooperative mode, all of your provinces start off as tainted. Tainted means they start off with a +2 modifier to each one. Now I won't be playing a whole game against this. I've done that recently. In fact, I'll represent this with the 2 same decks I did fight the switch, which were my Lion and my Crab clan decks. However, I don't have the space or time in the area I have to use right now. So, all of your provinces will start as tainted, and then 5 cards, 1 on each province, will be dealt out at the start of the Dynasty phase. If you don't know how the phase sequence works in L5R, you should go and either find mine or somebody else's video on how the phase sequences work. If that doesn't end up working out for you and you need a brief example, here's how they work. Per round, you have 5 phases. Dynasty phase is where you buy characters, draw phase is where you draw cards, and you lose or gain honor depending on the difference of what you two bid. and this is a slightly different plan, so I'll represent that or show that off in a second. Conflict phase is when you're actually going and doing your battles, and you're deciding, who's winning, who's doing what, and you're contesting for the Imperial favor. However, in the Shadowlands deck cannot get Imperial favor, and in fact, if the Shadowlands does win the technical Imperial favor, it does not go to them, it goes to some far-off clan who's not in the battle. So it's technically just out of play. Fate phase is where you collect your money, any triggered effects go off, and your characters are removed and discarded, losing a fate according to how many turns they've been around. And then there is the regroup phase where everything gets reset and ready for the next dynasty phase. Which is just a brief example of it. It wasn't too in-depth, but I hope you understand that more now, and if you already knew that, then just skip this part. Honored and Dishonored as well. Honored adds your glory count on your character to your military or political strength. Dishonored would take it away, and then if, this is not the actual token for it, it's in here, but if your character is honored, when it dies, you will gain 1 honor, or if it's dishonored and the character dies, you will lose 1 honor out of your general player pool. Now, the Shadowlands deck draws 5 cards at the beginning, 1 on each province, out of its dynasty deck, and they are all flipped over at the same time as yours after you have made your selections, depending if you allow yourself to mulligan or not. Everybody has different rules for themselves. So assuming that you have your 4 character cards and provinces out, you would be essentially now buying your characters in turn against the Shadowlands. However, the Shadowlands will buy first as them having the first player token, and how this works is, let's say there were 2 players fighting the Shadowlands. Each of them had their provinces out now, their decks have been shuffled and set out, they've gained their fate and they've gained their honor. The Warlord, all the Warlords in fact, have 5 fate per dynasty phase. So this one will get 5 money per player, per phase. So every time you go back around this cycle, back to the dynasty phase, it would gain 10 if you had 2 players, like I'm representing. And then your players, of course, would gain the natural 7, unless it's Unicorn Clan, who would get the 6 for their 1 stronghold, but I wouldn't worry about that. So, let's say you're set up. You do not buy first. The Shadowlands deck buys first, and how this works, it sounds really strange, is it actually kind of takes more out of the general fate pool, which is the fate pool you all pull from when you gain fate or lose fate and you spend it. So how this happens is it starts from left to right, and it always buys in this manner without refilling the provinces. So its first action would be to buy this character for 3, and then take a fate out of the pool and put it onto that character. And this is considered now the 1 fated first wave. Then you guys would get 1 action. And what I mean by you guys isn't Lion Clan character gets to buy 1 character and then Crab gets to buy 1 character and we come back. It's actually you both have to decide which one of you gets to buy something. So if Crab goes, hey, I want this character first, then the Lion Clan has to either allow it or disallow it and come back with their own counter offer and be like, hey, no, I want to buy this first, whatever. Whoever decides on theirs, you guys are considered essentially as a team, 1 person, 1 choice against their 1 choice. So whatever they buy, let's just say Lion Clan buys Matsu Swiftspear, then the Crab Clan does not get to buy anything, and it goes back to the Shadowlands. It would buy this next card, but considering it's a holding, it doesn't actually buy this, and it moves into the next card, the Butcher of Yashagi. 1, 2, 3, and 4 fate as the cost on the top of it, and 3 of the fate are put on it. So now this one is on the first wave, and this one's technically on the 3rd wave. Then, after they buy another character, just as we did the last turn, or they pass, however, if you pass, you do not gain fate like how you would if you passed against a player. So if you're fighting a 1v1 on a player, and you pass first, and you say I don't want to buy any other characters, you gain 1 free fate, and that helps you manipulate your battles. However, against the Shadowlands, it does not matter who passes. Who passes first, it doesn't matter. You don't get your fate from that. So that is a nice decision. You don't have to pass first. There's no pressure on it. It's just a nice way of kind of forcing you into the battle. Lastly, it would buy its next character, being the Scavenging Goblin. It would cost 1 fate, and then put 1 fate from the pool onto that character. And as you can see, the Shadowlands is down to 2 fate, which at first sounds like a victory for the players, because they'd be very happy to see it was so low. But after all the buying is done, the players have refilled their provinces face down like this after they've bought their characters off of them. However, the Shadowlands does not. Any effects would go off. For instance, both of these have a conflict phase interrupt, which would happen after the conflict phase ends, because it says after the conflict phase ends on both of them. Then, so the characters going into the conflict, if there's any effects the players have, they would go off now, and that would be in action. The thing about the Shadowlands is anytime you as this team, use an action, the Shadowlands gains the inaction as well. It does not have to use its action depending on the situation, but it is optional. And that action would be to take the next card off the top of the conflict deck and to essentially use it. It would pay for it per the cost. So if the conflict were to happen and you're ready to fight now, the Shadowlands will go first. And how this will happen is the Shadowlands, of course, can't really decide how it wants to attack you. There's no thing saying, okay, I think the air ring is the best choice for us. And one thing to actually keep in mind is that the Shadowlands uses different ring effects for its victories. Not yours, but its. And I just represented those on the screen. How it begins the conflict is by drawing the next card off the conflict phase. And instead of buying it, it would use the shadow number down here as its bid against your bid. So actually, pardon me, I skipped into the conflict phase, an accident. I got ahead of myself. Before the conflict phase, if you actually were paying attention and I wasn't being a fool, you would use your dials against it to draw cards before you enter the conflict. I got a little bit ahead of myself. There should be a buying phase, which is where you buy characters, you play any events or anything off of your dynasty provinces. Crap, I just messed up words. But anyway, I'll just skip past it because it doesn't matter. Once you do your bid, you actually first you draw the indifference of this. So let's just keep what's on here and say this player played a 3 and this player played a 1. You would lose no honor as the player who played the 1, so let's say it was the Crab Clan. Lose no honor, they would draw their 1 card. Lion Clan would lose 2 honor. They would technically go to the pool because the Shadowlands doesn't keep honor. Then, in the conflict, the thing I was actually trying to say before I skipped the ring, is once the conflict starts, you flip a conflict card, and that Shadowlands number will tell it where it's attacking and with what ring. So, if this says Province 4, both players will have their 4 provinces out, which kind of looks like this, but just missing one. And what actually happens is it selects the province from left to right, 1, 2, 3, 4, and it would attack both players' 4th province. Not just one, both of them. And so how that works is you don't actually add those provinces together. This would be the first wave character coming out. So these two, being that they have the same fate on them, now count as the first player. Also, I guess I'm backtracking, for the fate, for that draw, they would gain the Shadowlands and the Shadow play number. God, I can't say words. Just messing up now. The shadow number against your draw. When you do your draw, they gain that amount of fate per player. So if this is 1, they gain 2. It's kind of hard when I have to explain it now, but once I play it, or once I showcase it off, it gets a little bit easier. So hopefully maybe I'll make a second video and just go back over this again and just smooth it out. But for now, I'll just make do with this, just to get some explanation out there for the people who said they didn't know. So, going back to where we were and actually being back on track instead of skipping around a lot, I get that. The first attack will happen from the Shadowlands with the characters with 1 fate on them, or if there was no characters with 1 fate, it would move up to the characters with 2 fate, 3 fate, so on, so on. It's also possible for a Shadowlands character to have characters with no fate, so long as they haven't been around the round with no fate. So if last turn they had 1 fate on them, that fate would be lost, unless they had an effect to stop that. And the next turn they would technically be the first wave with 0 fate. But yet again, try not to be confusing. So for the explanation on this, these 2 characters would be attacking with a total of 8 military or 6 political. So obviously they would pick the military bonus. That's what they would choose. So, being that they chose the firing on the 4th provinces, how you would represent that is I would put it down militarily, and I would put 4 honor tokens or anything that shouldn't be over here. I wouldn't use the fate token. If I had, usually I use those little Lion Clan tokens that you can get in a stronghold box. Anything to represent something, a number you won't forget, even if you just write it down on a piece of paper, 4. Or you could technically just go back and look at the card, but if you want just a quick visual example, this is usually what I do. So I put 4 honor tokens in front of it and put the ring down like this. And both players now know it's the 4th province on the fire ring, militarily. Then you'll go through the battle. Everything will go through as a standard battle happens, except for one thing. The players, just like in the buying phase, make 1 action on everything. So, using an action, an ability, playing a character, buying from your conflict deck, playing any cards from your conflict deck that cost an action. If either of them use 1 action, it will then go to the Shadowlands, who will then play the next card off the top of their conflict deck, paying the cost of it to the general pool, and then they will do what's on the card, so long as it is possible to have been done and has the correct targets and fate. So if they don't have enough fate to play the card, they don't get to play the card. Now, an important thing to know is that when they run out of conflict cards, the deck does not actually have any repercussions as much as it just reshuffles back in from the discard. So there's not really a cost for them running out of conflict cards. However, if you deck them out of dynasty cards, you win. So, this is an attachment that would get onto a character. Really, I would say it would probably, in this case, this one. It would probably be placed here, or on an opponent, in fact. So either you could put it on this character, depending on which you guys decide on, as what would be the best option for the Shadowlands. So it would probably go to your characters and say you can't attack politically anymore. Or it might actually land on its own character, if that's what you guys decide, and force it to play militarily, just so it wouldn't be able to be used in a political battle on its weaker stays. However you guys decide to do it, that is for both players, or as many players are playing on the opposite team to decide. Then, when this battle is over, of course you'll trigger any effects that happen. So if you won this conflict, this goblin will have a reaction for that. If you players win, then this one will not get after this character wins the conflict effect. So that only happens if the Shadowlands wins. But regardless of what happens, after that battle is over, take your honor tokens and the ring, give the ring to whoever won. So if the Shadowlands won, let's just say that's what happened, they would of course get the fire ring, and they would get to do its Shadowland effect, which is on fire, each opponent chooses and taints a character they control. So both of these two, the lion and the crab, will take a character, and on this side of the token, with the military and political side on it, not the stronghold side on it, but the military and political side, would add it to the character, and it would give them +2 strength, but cost them an honor to declare them in an attack or defense at all. Then what would happen is, let's say the players now both decide they're going to attack the Shadowlands province. Obviously they can't use the fire token just as you, the fire ring just as you do in a normal battle. So I'll just give an idea here. Let's say they want to, let's say I recommend them to play the water ring. And of course this character could not fight politically, so if they chose a political battle, what would happen is if they attacked, let's say, this province politically, the province would flip over, just as it standardly does against a player. Of course, do its effect if it has one. So you would take 1 fate from each opponent if you attack Spectral Watchtower, so that would go from them into the pool. And then, since it's political, it has no defenders, can't defend. So what happened is the player would do their attack. If they break the province, which, how the provinces work is it has this number, the stronghold number, or province number, per player. So if it's 4, then it would be 8 for these two, plus the 2 from the tainted, which would bring it up to 10. And you don't really have to worry about the tainted effect as long as you are not tainted. If your province are tainted, you have to worry about this extra effect. However, it does not mean anything for the Shadowlands as they have no honor. Let's say you went militarily for a moment. This character would then be defending, because it is the next wave. It does not go off a number basis. It doesn't have to be 1, 2, 3. It just moves into the next available wave. Then, let's backtrack, go back to say it was a political. Let's say it was a political battle. They used their characters and broke this province. Okay? What would happen is they would claim the ring. The province would break. However you want to represent that is fine. Everybody has a different style of doing it, of course. Some people just turn it upside down, as the game usually suggests you to do. I personally, sometimes, if I have the space, I like to turn the card sideways and upside down, just so it's completely out of the way, not thought about anymore. Then, obviously, take the tainted and discard it off there, just so it's off the board and it's not wasting space anymore. Province is broken. So what you can do now is, because you broke the province, you take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards. Every time you break a province of the Shadowlands, 5 cards are discarded from the Shadowlands Dynasty deck, which means you essentially killed every one of these 5 guys at this province during your battle. Which, if this deck reaches 0, remember, you win. Or, if you break every single one of these provinces. Either way. Now, so you would win the water ring, use your water ring ability, probably unbow a character from this first conflict who attacked or defended actually from this conflict. Regardless of how that goes, the Shadowlands will then declare its next attack using this character. And of course, during that last conflict, when you were fighting the Spectral Watchtower, and even though it has no defenders, if you take an action, it would still flip a card for every action and pay fate to have that. So this would either each ready participating character opponent controls, that character must select one and bow them or lose an honor, then taint a participating character they control. So they would still have to do that. So Shadowlands would pay for that and do that. And then if you still broke the province, we'll continue as we were. So then we go, and after that battle happens, let's say each side has won 1 ring so far. The Butcher or Shaggy will then now be attacking as the third or second wave of the Shadowlands. I said third, but it's actually the second. It would then only have these 3 rings to choose from, which is what I was trying to show you. On its declaring the conflict, it will flip one. If it matches the ring and then the province it is attacking is unbroken, it can pick that number that's selected. So if it's attacking the first player's provinces, both of the first player's provinces, with the air ring is what this card would represent, which is funny because that's the same one we just got a second ago. So. Then, of course, it would have to be military, but we do have a slight problem with that, and that's because we've already used a military battle. This would actually not be able to attack you, because the Shadowlands still is only able to do 1 and 1, as the player is. So it can only do 1 military, 1 political, just as you can. So this battle, this whole thing would actually pass as a conflict, and then go back to you. If you, for some reason, could make your next, let's say you're going to make your military battle, then you would go about doing it. Pick your province, it'll defend. Same thing. Or if you had a card that lets you do it politically, you still wouldn't be able to defend with the Shadowlands, still wouldn't be able to defend with the Butcher. It sounds all confusing, but the more you do it, the easier it is, and the smoother it'll go. It's a lot of remembering stuff, and that's usually what I find to be the problem with it, especially when talking about it, is because I remember something after I've already mentioned something ahead of it, and then I have to go back and retrack and talk about it again. So I hope it's not too confusing. Mainly what you should worry about is the waves. So what number of fate is on each character, that counts as a wave. So this is wave 1, this would be wave 2. How, as a player, I would go about fighting this, especially if I saw this setup, was they attacked us firing like this, we did that, we defended with the water ring, or we attacked with the water ring after that, politically, because of course, the next time, if I had a way of fighting politically, I would do that again. Because this character would not be able to defend in that conflict. So you would basically get another, not necessarily free attack, but undefended attack, which is really good. And this would be really, really bad for the Shadowlands, because it will not be able to declare another attack against you, which means until you pass, they're going to only be able to defend militarily with this setup. So this is actually a first good wave to come across. Although, in the Shadowlands, the first wave is always the easiest. So, let's say you attacked militarily, they defended, and you attacked. We'll just give you a representation here of the blood fields. This would be 8, 10, 11, because 4, 1 for each of the 2 players. 5, 6, so that would be 10, and then 11 because of this +1 up here. I don't know why I said 5, 6, ignore that. I was just thinking about without it, I guess. But, let's say you attacked here. As the conflict is declared against this province, remove 1 fate from each attacking character. That's really not too bad, actually. It kind of sucks if you had, really good characters, like you put your champion out and you put something on them, or you had a commander, you put them out and you're like, oh, this is, I want this guy to stick around. That kind of does damper, the battle a little bit, and it kind of ruins your future plans, dare I say. But I guess that's the whole point of it. So this character will obviously defend. F's or the Shadowlands will get the first action on defense. By the way, if it has no fate to play the card, it will not play the card, and it will instead just discard the card. So. Anything really that you guys could not answer, like you guys couldn't figure out how to do, it's in the rule to play book. It usually just takes a little bit of reading. Keep it with you while you guys are playing, just in case you have to go back and backtrack, especially because of the different ring effects. When the Shadowlands wins a ring, it gets to do a different ring effect, as I showed before. I'm trying to remember to recycle everything I've said so it's easier to understand for people watching. I get it's a lot of confusing, but let's say these 3 rings were contested. Let's say the province was actually not broken, as it was defended with a 7 militarily. It would be quite a struggle. The Shadowlands had no money to buy this action, so if, for some reason, you guys attacked, didn't take another action, this is all that would happen. Is the character would bow, you did not break the province, so technically, if you still won the conflict, you would get the Earth Ring, win the ring. If you did not, it would go to the Shadowlands and do their effect, same as a standard player. That part is all the same. And a fate token would get put on each ring. Then that's just as it would standardly be in a battle. It's normal in L5R. And then Imperial Favor would go to whoever had the most. If it goes to the Shadowlands, they don't actually get to keep it. It just goes to someone outside the battle, so it's just out of play. So they just stop you from using it, essentially, which is just not too bad. Then, hypothetically, of course, we're just going to keep moving on. What happens is all of these players here, all of these guys would lose one fate for the end of the round and the regroup phase. Or the fate phase, regroup phase, everything. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These effects would go off when the conflict phase ends as well. Let me remember to mention that. Trying to remember to talk about everything. It gets really complicated. And then for the next round, the Kumina Oni would start out with 10 fate to spend more than it had. It didn't have to spend all of its fate. Let's just say he did. This is just a hypothetical battle going on. I'm just trying to go through a couple waves to understand. Then, on the next turn, one card would be flipped over and added on top of each. And then you would continue on. I see I froze there for a second. Let me go back over that because I don't really have a way to stop that, which is really annoying. You would flip one card on top of cards that are already there. So you're just adding on to the dynasties. Another card added onto it, just like a rally would, or any form of addition to your dynasty, your provinces, I guess. So, just as it had last turn, it will spend fate to play a card out with the fate on that character. So this Onikage rider would actually join the butch over here. These are really hard to keep on these cards. Into the second wave. So this is first wave now, this is the second wave. However, this next guy would actually become the second wave when he gets bought. Actually, no, that'll work. Into 1, 2, 3 waves, and then continuing on. This guy would join the next wave. You cost 3. Put 2 on it as his reinforcement number, or the fate, extra fate on it. And how that just works is, oh, actually I missed one. My bad. Luckily, he still had enough fate for all of them. So, trying to represent it from this POV is actually messing me up because usually I'm sitting on the other side controlling these two, making the decisions for them while I let this just kind of sit over here, and then I do it from the other way around, which is I'm actually looking at this from the other side. But trying to represent this is difficult. Anyway, this is what the next wave would look like. Obviously the Shadowlands would lose its first player token to you. So these guys will get to play buy first, attack first. So actually it would have been, they got to buy, when the Kage Rider would come out, they got to buy, then the next one would come out. And if they passed, it would just continue going until it had no money or ran out of characters to buy. As you can see, the Shadowlands likes to ramp up in waves, becoming more powerful each time. And actually, this time has been a little bit more forgiving than when I played it. When I played against it, this was the first card on one of these provinces. These two were, which becomes a real big problem because these discard every single one of your cards when the conflict phase ends off of your provinces, and this one takes a fate from the pool and puts it on a goblin character to keep him around, which is more annoying than you would believe. Then what happens is the characters move to the draw phase, me actually following the order correctly this time because I didn't forget. You would do your bids again, do the Indifference of Honor, and this character, wow, really lucky today. I would have loved to fight this version. Would get 2 fate because the shadow number is a 1, so 1 for each player. Man, I would have loved to fight that. That would have been way easier. As you can see, your luck of the draw really comes in. Why did I put that over there? Where are you from? Get out of here. Yeah, no, that's just confusing. Anyway, just move past that, I guess. This video is supposed to just be silly and dumb and explain the video anyway, so it's not really supposed to be the greatest video ever, of course. So if you find it mildly entertaining, I'll be glad. Although one thing I would like to mention though is you don't have to like or subscribe. I know everybody asks that, but if I could ask instead you to go and play Legend of the Five Rings, you know, mention it, you know, play it, introduce it to new people, you know, show people the online version, Jigoku. It's very fun, it's very cool. It uses another site, EmeraldDB, to help you build your decks, which is really easy to use and really cool. Maybe I'll make a video showcasing that as well. I know it sounds like a lot of sidetracking, but that is something really important, especially if you're liking this so far and you're like, man, I would love to fight this. This looks so cool, you know. Play my characters against the Shadowlands and have an epic battle, and you know, this time get luckier than maybe last time. You know what I mean? Maybe you and your friend last time got horribly massacred, and then the next time you win. You know. So, but you never find out if you didn't get people into it or, you know, spread it around and showcase it. So all I wanted to say is when you truly like something, especially something like this, like Legend of the Five Rings, it's a card game. It's discontinued now, but it was so beloved and cool. There are artists who work so hard on the artwork. The rules and the abilities and the actions were all very well planned out, in my opinion, I have to say. So I think it just deserves more love and attention. So if you see somebody at a card shop one day, go sit down and be like, hey, ever heard of Legend of Five Rings? You want to play? Talk about it. Showcase it to your friends. You know, tell them, you know, you beat the Shadowlands if you did. Or, you know, tell them you lost horribly to it if you lost, you know. So just get it out there. Showcase it. You know, tell people why you like it. Make a stupid YouTube video about it to help other people understand it, you know. Things like that. So, getting back into this, you, of course, then, the first wave would be defending against the player's attack. So if they attacked, or, you know, if they decided to pass, whichever would happen. So, let's say they attacked. I'll just give you an example. Let's say they attacked with military on, say they're going for this province name. These two would defend militarily. So obviously, it would technically be more beneficial for them to attack politically just based off of these numbers, but not, maybe after seeing your characters you would change that. So maybe your characters had a crap ton of military skill, like you had Hida Kasada out, who comes out with 7, you know, or Revenant Legion with him, and that comes out with 9. So, however you decide to do it. Let's say you did that. This province flips over. This is the Fallen Crescentium Lake, which I'm sure you just noticed is the same artwork as my mat. I went over and redrew a whole bunch of it and had it printed out as a mat. So, which is another cool thing you can do with, you know, especially a card game like this, is nobody cares. Everybody loves the artwork. You know, go bring the artwork, turn it into something. People love it. You know, just love the game, show it off, do something cool with it. I'm sure it'll get you much further than you ever thought it would. So if you did this, after the conflict is declared against you, each player then has to discard their hand and draw that many cards. This province would have, based off these two players, yet again using the number 2 as the number of players, this would start off with 6, 7, 8. The 3 multiplied by the 2 players, added the 2 taint, 6, 7, 8. Obviously there are no holdings on it, so it wouldn't get any more bonuses. So how I would like to show this, because if I had this set up, I would like to just clear these guys out in a different way, you know. So set these two guys apart, because you know that they're defending this. Now all of these guys aren't a part of it. Or you know, so set them as far away as you can. Or, you know, do something like this, center them, you know. Anything that can help you remember it. Just don't put something on them, you know. Don't put fate on it. Be like, oh, this guy, you know. Or don't put a crap ton of honor tokens on them, because you'll probably forget why they were on there, you know. Unless you have a specific coin for that, you know. Or you use something completely different. You're like, you know, oh, whatever, this upside down honor down means this guy's attacking. Whatever. Make something. Use it. You know, put them out. You can do, one of my favorite things is actually in L5R, if you have this dual playmat. The giant dual playmat. It's a playmat for both players. It gives you a really cool representation of how the home and in battle works and how that actually is. It's not really well pictured in the graphics of the rule to play book. It's not horrible, but I feel like it's just better represented on Jigoku or on the mat. Is players who are home are behind and players who are in the attack are above. And so all of these guys are at home right now, and these two are defending. Regardless of what the outcome of this battle is, let's say they both lost horrendously and this beautiful province was broken. Player would ring the ring, get to do their ability, and the province would break yet again, depending on how you like to set that up. That's fine. One thing I would like to showcase actually is why I picked the Earth Ring, is the Shadowlands player, as I'm sure you know by now and you figured this out, does not have a hand. So if you win, the players, these guys over here, win the Earth Ring, what happens is you just discard the next card off of it. Instead of discarding a random card, you just discard the next card off of it. Which doesn't sound as helpful as it should be, but it actually really is more helpful than you would believe, because you're getting rid of another thing that could have been used against you. And you're also getting rid of something that could have been, really catastrophic in the draw phase or the next attack. Like, let's see. If you hadn't have gotten rid of that card, the next attack would have been on your second provinces with the Water Ring. I don't know how good or how bad that would have been for you, but that could have been, the difference between life and death, literally, in this card game. So then, of course, it would become the Shadowlands' turn, and they would attack with these two being the next wave, the second wave, represented by the fate on them, matching with the one fate. So, all characters with two fate are one wave. All characters one or one fate on them are one wave together. All of them with the same number. I hope that makes sense. All of them with the same number become a wave. So, like, if this guy only had one on him, he would be in this wave. But since he has two, he's with Onikagi and the Butcher. Then, of course, Shadowlands would make their attack based off the next card. So they would take their next card, and look, it changed to the first provinces, both the first provinces, so both of your players' first provinces, and then with the Fire Ring. So, well, let's give you an example here. Let's say that the first provinces were already broken, or one of them was, then if only one of them is broken, they can still make that attack. So how that works is, let's say, let me give you an example, a better visual here. Let's say this is the first province. Of course, you got the one that's not helpful. Give me a set number. There we go. So let's say these are both the first provinces, and let's say that for some reason Defend the Wall is broken. They will still attack. They will just be focusing on, so they usually focus on these at the same time. So how that works is you're not adding these together. It's not 8 total. Even if this one wasn't broken, it's not 8 total. They're still attacking just like you would a normal province, except they're attacking both of you at the same time. Now, your characters matter for fighting each other. So, like, if you have, let's just take two guys. Butcher of the Fallen, I already used Matsu for an example, so let's grab something else. Berserk. Let's say you had both of these guys defending, and it's as I said, military fire conflicts on these, It's a number one. You would have 9 defense if both of these were against these two. 9 to 8. So you'd actually be winning so far until something happens. Of course, you do your action, then the Shadowlands will do their action. They'll play this. This event says each participating Shadowlands character gets +2/+2, and each non-Shadowlands gets -2/-2, which means you just went down from 9 to 4 and 1, so 5, to their 8 and 4, so 12. So you just went way down. You went from winning to losing in one card. That's how different the Shadowlands was. And in fact, that's free too. So this is a horrible, horrible card to get hit with. So just a representation. So if this province is broken and they're still attacking with one, they can still attack with just the one province. They'll just be trying to break this one instead of being trying to break both. Which, let's go back and just give you another example, just in case you still don't understand, you still don't follow. I'll give you a quick battle. Let's say these two are defending their provinces. So this was a total of 9, now dropped down to 5. This was a total of 8, now bumped up to 12. I see you camera tweaking now. I apologize if it's really, really crazy. Anyway, I guess I'll just continue and do it as I can. It's not the best camera I've had to work with. I didn't want to use my phone because I didn't have anywhere to set it, so this is kind of what we're doing. I just hope it gets the message across, gets the idea out there. Something cool. Anyway, so you went from winning to losing, right? And now it's 12 to 5. So let's say you couldn't do anything else. That was it. The end of the conflict. You used all your actions. For every action you guys both used together as one action, they did the Shadowlands would do their one action. So if you guys did something, you both decided, hey, okay, Butcher of the Fallen, I'm going to put an attachment on, and Shadowlands gets to do their next action, flip the next card, use it, you know what I mean? And that would help, or, not help you at all. So, in fact, the best thing to see with the Shadowlands is something that just doesn't work, because anything that doesn't work or doesn't target, so let's take this card. It says bow a participating non-friendly Shadowlands character and then put your warlord into play in the conflict. This would be a horrible next card in this conflict, because you're already losing it. If you did something to try and save it, now the warlord all of a sudden is into the conflict. Then move all of your fate and attachments from the bowed character. So let's just say they bowed this, or not this one, because they wouldn't want to lose that. So all of that would go into the warlord, and now the warlord's into the fight. So as you can see, every action you take is horrible. It makes it way harder for you to win. So this would be the next conflict. And here's the thing, is he's going to stick around too. I guess technically he's a bowed character. So he just lost his faith. He's just home and bowed. Well, he's not really home, but he's still in the conflict up here. But just for the fact that I really don't care in my explanation, like I don't have to go too in depth because I'm not actually doing the conflict battle here. This is how I'm representing it. Maybe I'll come back and do a video and just showcase how I'm playing it. And if I make a mistake, you guys can correct me on that. And I'll give you guys, my thoughts on what I'm doing. But for right now, this is how this is going. So let's say that happened, and this one was already broken. Then what happens is, if they broke this province, they won the ring, they break the province, they would just break just the one, not both. They'd just break the one. And then they'd move on just as you standardly do. So it all works pretty, seamlessly. Not too bad, actually. The problem is, every action you take, you are essentially screwing yourself into the next action. Every time a Shadowlands takes an action, it is way worse for you. Not like a little worse, but way worse for you. So let's say the conflict's over. The warlord and the wild ogre now bow. They go away. They're done. The next wave will move in, regardless if they're attacking or defending or whatever. If you had an effect that says, oh, attack again before you're, whatever, or you guys lost, whatever, you just continue as you normally were. And the thing about this is, now, the next round, what will happen is, let's say that it was done. Every character bowed, battles were over, let's just say that. These guys, so this guy's definitely going to die because he's an ogre. And the only reason why I say he's going to die is because the only way to save a character right now out of this is this. It says, when the conflict ends, choose 3 different goblin characters, move 1 fate from your fate pool to each chosen character. Okay, But you might see something conflicting here. You go, oh wait, why does this say when the conflict phase ends, gain 2 fate for each opponent? Does this happen before this? Well, if you're wondering about that, the truth is yes, this does happen before this. How that happens is it goes left to right. Everything stays left to right. Very autonomous. Very easy to keep track of. So, this interrupt would happen when the conflict phase ends. Discards all of your guys' cards and your promises, regardless of what they were. There's no way to save it unless you have like a very specific card that says like, you know, stop and interrupt, or you know, or you broke this promise and you got rid of this holding. You know, if you broke this promise, you could have gotten rid of this card. Discard. But let's say it would do this one first. If you didn't break this promise and get rid of this would happen first. Then this one would happen. Gain 2 for each opponent. So that would just give you, for the sake of our representation here, 4, giving you a total of 5. Then you would have this option. When the conflict phase ends, choose up to 3 different goblin characters. Luckily there are exactly 3. Move 1 fate pool to each chosen character. So it says up to. So maybe you think the Shadowlands would rather have their money and put this guy into another wave. Maybe not, you know. So let's just say you did this. You put 1 on each one, just as representation. Then what would happen is, during the next phase, after the conflict phase, of course, everybody loses 1 fate. But the thing about that is, because you move the fate to these goblins, they're going to stay around and be part of the next first wave with the warlord, which is going to be horrifying. So the longer the Shadowlands stays alive, the worse it is to fight. And then they also gain 5 per player. 5. So they would have quite a bit of fate to play around with. In fact, I think when I last fought this deck, they ended up with like 28 fate just free to spend, because they were not using it. Then, during the next Dynasty phase, you of course would just put your next characters out again. They would get the start of turn, just like they did, and everything would continue on as it has and as I've explained it so far. Now, if the Shadowlands breaks all of your provinces, your 3 provinces and your stronghold, not all of your provinces, but your 3 provinces and your stronghold, just as it is in standard L5R, your player dies. Now the thing about that is, let's say the Leng clan and the Crab clan were fighting, and here's what happened in my last one, is the Crab clan got its 3 provinces and stronghold broken, which actually technically that's not what happened. I ran out of honor. So what happens if you run out of honor is it automatically breaks your stronghold. So the Crab clan lost its stronghold. It didn't lose 3 provinces, but if you lose 3 provinces, then they'll attack your stronghold, and let's say that happened too. Whichever one happens, if a character's stronghold is broken, regardless of how it's broken, if you run out of honor, it breaks automatically. If your 3 provinces are broken and then they attack your stronghold province and they break that, that also counts. However it is broken, the player is then considered to be dead, but still part of the battle. They can still continue on. It's just if the other player dies as well, they both lose. So he can continue on with the broken stronghold, he just loses a lot of his things. So A, they cannot bid over 2 on their honor dial, which really, really sucks, because they would not be able to draw as many cards anymore. B, what's really, really strange is they can still play characters and they can still have their provinces break, because if they have a province that isn't broken, they can still be attacked, just like it would for the Leng clan. But the real big problem, though, is if the Leng clan has a similar problem, they run out of honor as well, then they both lose. You guys are done. If you're both your so your 3 provinces break and your stronghold breaks, your 3 provinces and your stronghold breaks, you die, and then you guys will lose. Pack up, you're done. You know. Trying to make sense of it so it's easier to explain, but it's really hard without the visual, which actually I didn't think was going to matter as much as it does. So, of course, the next wave would just continue on as it has before, so far. So, cost you 2, put 2 on it. You guys would get to buy something. This next one would actually cost 5, put 3 on it. this becomes part of its own wave, which, as I'm sure as you can see now, is really, really quite horrifying. And it just continues on. Buy the next two after you guys buy your next two. Same thing. I think this is the first time I've seen it not be able to buy a character, actually. So I must have been really lucky and unlucky in my last one. Just lucky at the times I needed it, unlucky at the times I didn't. So, this would be the next wave coming to kill you. This would be their first attack. This would be these guys would be one possible defense, or if you decide to not attack and you pass, this is going to be the next attack. And then continuing on after that, same thing, just keep going. Of course, then after that, there'd be the draw. You do your bids, your dials, just as I explained it. You'd use this number. They gain however much. This was a 1, so they gain 1 for each player, which is really unlucky. Has it really been 1 all 3 times? Wow, that's crazy. I've never had it that low. Usually it was like 4. Or is it 4 or is it just 3? I don't remember. It's something. I think it's been 3 multiple times. However it goes. That's essentially how this works. It goes until they either deck out or you break their provinces. And it will continue doing that until, you will win or you lose. So, after this round, these guys can be saved from the thing again too, which is really annoying. Which means if this is still here, these guys could still be around. These two could still be around. The goblins could still get 1 fate on them, which means they'd still live into the next round. So much would happen then. They would be in with these guys. Actually, not this one, because then you could place another one on him. He'd stay as a 1. But these guys would all be together, and the warlord would just go back to being out of play, just not being touched anymore. So hopefully this was a kind of informative overview of the Shadowlands and how to do the challenge, or cooperative mode, not challenge mode, cooperative mode. I made that mistake already. I'm not trying to give you a whole playthrough of it. I feel like that would take much too much time. But if I do get around to it, maybe I will make a video of me playing it just to make even more sense. I hope that makes sense to you. It's most of the stuff is actually the same thing as when you're attacking a player. Most of the indifference just comes from the deck itself deciding what to do. I'll give these a good shuffle later, don't worry about that. I'm sure somebody saw me do that and they're like, oh, that's not shuffled well enough. I'll get to it. Also though, one thing I would like to actually quickly mention is if you're playing L5R and you're wondering, how do I store my decks? How would I, sleep my cards? How would I do stuff? I'll tell you now how I do mine. And I think this works really well. I'm sure somebody has their own way that they'll say is better, or they'll say, it's like, oh, this is more efficient, or whatever. But for, the kid in college playing a kind of, mildly expensive card game, it's not hugely expensive, but this pack itself is rather hard to come by, so it's mildly expensive. I would say that this is probably your best and most cost-efficient bet. Technically, you could get colored sleeves, which are cheaper, but I think that clear sleeves are a way to go. I think I get the Dragon Shield clear sleeves. They're like $17 for 100 or 200. I don't remember exactly. But as expensive as that sounds, these have been the same ones for almost 2 years now. I've had this. The cards the sleeves held up pretty well. I could see it very clearly. I've had no problems with it. They even have a little bit of texture on the back for easier grip. So, I think I have a box of it, actually. I might grab if I don't just horribly send my camera out of view here. 100, I was right. These are the ones you're looking for if you want to do the same thing I do, just have the clear sleeves. They're Dragon Shield 100 standard size. You want to focus on standard size. These cards are not Japanese size like Yu-Gi-Oh! Or the Digimon Japanese size? I don't remember. I think Digimon's Japanese as well. Yeah, I think they're Japanese size. Any of those. So, standard size clear sleeves work really well. On a standard deck, 100 would cover one per deck usually, and then you'd have some extra. So, I think this deck uses 40, 80, 85, 86 at least. At least 86 cards. I'd recommend going. You can go to Target or Walmart. I think Target is where I got these ones. It's called Card Guard. They're like $3.99 a box. Not too bad. The color matches the clan too. I mean, I guess not with the Leng clan, but white is close enough to yellow. It's probably the closest color you can get that they have out of these. But $3 deck, $3 deck box. Your deck goes in it pretty well. It fits very well in there. You have the divider that's really helpful. So that's what I would recommend. But what I was actually going to talk about is most importantly is also same with these. You can get these from like Hobby Lobby for like $2. You can order them online. What was mine? $4.99? $4.99. They used to be much cheaper actually. I know you used to be able to get them for $2, but I had to get new ones because of the color of these. But I like the red and the white matching the fate being pale and the red matching the honor. I feel like that works really nicely for me. How I would like to pack these away, how I like to do it, is to take your conflict deck cards after you're done. Of course, you shuffle them off. By now, that's like, you're like, you're like, oh, how would I put them away? How do I get it without mixing them? Do I just put a divider in each? I feel like that's just too much work. It's too annoying. So what I actually like to do is I like to take, for the Shadowlands, my Warlord, and put it in between, like his own divider, and put it behind the card divider, and then put the Dynasty deck, kind of give it a brief shuffle, not a real shuffle, but a little bit, in front of the card divider. And that's just how it comes in. When you open it, you have your Dynasty deck already ready. You can shuffle it, whatever. Your conflict deck is really well separated. Same thing. Of course, I'd recommend double sleeving your Warlords. It's very important, especially if you want to take good care of them. I know even mine has a slight bend on the top of the card, but there's 3 different sleeves on it, and this last one had a bent top already, and that's why I used it. It's because it's actually kind of pushing the card down when I close it, and it's keeping it firmly in there. It's not bending my card or crushing my card either. It's not that hard on it. So just find what works for you. But for me, for my standard decks, I play in the Obsidian format, so that's why the cards are, if you've seen the cards and you're like, why does he have that card? I play Obsidian. I feel like Emerald doesn't represent the artwork very well. Emerald's fun and it's more direct to the rules and it's easier, I guess, for beginners. But I would say Obsidian, being that you get cooler arts, cooler abilities, more effects, I play it a little bit differently than most people. Most people play with 45 or more cards, depending on how many rallies they have. I just limit it to 45. I think every single deck should have at least one champion in it, and I like to have as many, personally, you don't have to, but I like to have as many clan-based province cards as you can. So for Crab Clan here, of course, see if I can make this focus a little bit better. Oh, there it is. God, this camera's killing me. I already apologize if you had to watch this and you're like, oh, what's going on? Why is he spazzing out? Trying to make it just a simple, helpful video just for the people who said they couldn't figure this out or they didn't know how to do it. It's not meant to direct you on it or give you, the best entertainment you've ever seen, but I figured for a start it wouldn't be too bad to watch. So the thing I do want to go over is, man, camera's just spazzing purple right now. Really helpful. I'm sure that's really enjoyable to watch. it's really helping. Anyway, well now it's just moving. That's so annoying. I wonder if there's a way to actually fix this or not. Anyway, I'll just say what I have to say, and if I have to clip it, then I will. I like to put the Seeker or Keeper card, so your roll card, in a black based or different colored based card, just because you don't need to see the back of it. The other side is double sided for the other roll option, so I figured it's best to put it in a one-sided card sleeve. Then to put your stronghold on top of it, then all of your provinces, doesn't matter what order, but for the sake of this I put the neutral one on the top for the sake of Crab Clan. Oh, it finally stopped spazzing, I'm glad. Sorry for having it spaz out like that. I guess I really can't stop that yet until I go buy a new camera, but I'm trying to be helpful, so ugh. That's what I get for trying to help, right? So then you take your conflict cards. Of course you shuffle them, you know, take care of your cards, make sure they're in the right, you know, nice fitting sleeves, everything you know, you personally prefer to have for them. So, and then put them on top of your stronghold cards. The reason why I like it like that, your stronghold and your province cards are white backed, which is kind of harder to find on the dynasty than it is in the conflict. I mean, you're going to notice that pretty quickly. And then divider, I like to put the divider on top of it. And then take your dynasty cards. Do the same thing, check them over, make sure their sleeves aren't ripped or torn somewhere. There isn't a seriously bent card, you know. And then stack them on top. And then this whole thing, as one unit, gets slotted in and closed. And then I did also want to say, since you're not using the other two warlords, I'd keep them in better packaging, something like a harder card sleeve, just to make sure that they don't get broken. In fact, I put a small piece of tape across the top, not touching the card, of course. It's like double, triple cased and has a case around it. The tape around the top of the case, just so they don't shake out. It won't come out. Then all of your extras, I would split into conflict and province, just like you did in there. I put the conflict and province in the same one, just so you don't lose them in the dynasty. And then have a dynasty one as well, separated. It makes it way easier to figure out where everything's supposed to be, and it's just way easier to get out, you know. If I was like, oh, I want to play with my Lion Clan today, all I have to do, take my dynasty clan out, shuffle it, you know, boom, set it down, you know, open it up, look at the back, boom, there's my strongholds, there's my provinces, there's my conflict deck, you know. Then I just look at it, make my decision. I think you're going as a stronghold province. You know, you're eminent, so you stay face up. And then just boom, boom, boom. Ready to go. Although I put these personally on the left-hand side. But you get how easy, you know, how easy that actually was. It wasn't too hard at all. You kind of just know where everything's at out of the gate. I feel it makes it way easier to get set up. And I've seen some people do it in bags. I've seen some people do it in really, really big boxes with like 3 or 4 dividers in them. I've seen them have all their decks in one really big box. I feel like just one deck per clan, per actual, you know, one deck per deck box. I feel like that works the best. The divider, one divider works fine. You know, it separates it well enough. You know, if you have clear sleeves or colored sleeves, those work too. Use colored sleeves, it's even easier. You know, But I prefer not to have color sleeves. I prefer to have the clear sleeves because I like the original art, and I feel like if I'm already going to be dividing it by color, why not just use the original color? You know, and these sleeves have held up beautifully so far, so I've never had to worry about it. So I'm going to put the tape in there. If you have any questions for me, you can either just write them in the comments here, or if you're on the L5R Discord, my name is Soulfire on the Discord, or I have a second account called Silent Samurai that's also on the Discord. In fact, if you play online on the Discord for L5R, I'd recommend you having 2 accounts so you could practice against yourself when you play on Jigoku. Because if you play on Jigoku, you can have one account playing one deck and then another account playing the other deck, and you could kind of just go back and forth and figure out what needs to be changed, what you should workshop, what to work with, you know. So what to do. And so all I was really saying for setup of the Shadowlands deck, have a mat. You know, don't put this on a hard counter or a tabletop. As many people who do it, just get a mat. It's not that hard to get a mat. Get a mouse pad. I don't even care. Something that's not damaging your cards. Get some card sleeves. Put card sleeves on your card. Protect them. You need those. You're going to need your Shadowlands deck. If you haven't already sorted your deck, I talked about how to make it. You pick your warlord. You open the rules of play book to what? Page 7. Based on which warlord you're using, it tells you which provinces have those provinces. It tells you which cards based on the numbers on the bottom. I showed those earlier. Those numbers are represented right here. In case you didn't see it before, you can just go back in the video and watch that part again. I'm sure I'll make a video with more depth explaining that. And then just base your deck off that. That's not really too hard. It's all pretty easy. Now, the important thing to remember is if you're playing against the Shadowlands deck and there's not a player making the choices, so you want this to run autonomously, you're playing on cooperative mode, not challenge mode. I know that sounds weird. You're like, shouldn't it be the other way around? That's just how it is. You play on cooperative, not challenge, because it's you two cooperating against instead of, you know, the challenge of another person. I guess that's how they represent it. You know. So on top of that, you'll need 2 dials or more, at least 1 for each deck. You know, you technically could fight this with 1 player, but I have to say, 1 player, it's usually not as fun, because either it's really, really hard when you're unlucky, or it's really, really easy. So either you win in like 2 turns, you're like, wow, that was easy, or you never beat it, you know, and it's just too difficult. Another thing is, obviously, you need an honor pool. I highly like getting one of these little chests or a box, something to take with you. It's really easy to store. You need your fate. You don't have to have the nice metal ones. There are the normal cardboard pink ones, which actually I still think look prettier, but the metal ones feel better in your hand. You need your rings. I have a nicer set of custom rings, of course, but these are the ones that come with the core sets. So these are probably what you'll be more used to seeing. 1 for each element. You'll need those. You'll need your honored, dishonored. So honored on one side, dishonored on the other side. Start a play token, phase sequence if you need it, and of course in here, Imperial Favor. Same stuff you would need for a normal L5R match, on top of, you know, everything else in here. So, just a brief overview of how to play the Shadowlands. Try not to bump into everything, it's impossible though. I would also recommend, if you're playing, to keep the original box. I know a lot of people like throw the box away. I personally find it to be much easier, especially like I use this box to represent all the collectibles I've gotten. So all my little clan packs, I cut out the photos on the front of them. You know, all my extra sleeves. You know, they don't have to have them in something, you know, a nice box. I just put them back in a bigger bag and set them in here, and it does the job well enough. You know, well enough to where I can kind of just gently pack all of this away Actually, I think I put this in on the bottom now, don't I? Yeah, I do. Just because it's more tightly in there. Done. And then you have it for the next time you're ready. And it's all the stuff you need for the Shadowlands is in one box. Ready. Especially if you have less stuff than I can put in. And then keep all of your stuff for an actual battle in another box. I have that. I have like all my winter court stuff, you know. Acrylic tokens for Honored and Dishonored. Those are very nice. I have my marker coins, which are very nice for when I was telling you earlier about trying to mark numbers. And the nicer rings, of course. And Imperial Favor should be in here too. Oh, it's still in the bag, but whatever, it's just in there. You definitely have to have your dials in there. Anything else really. I keep backups of everything. You know, keep your phase sequence cards, everything in one similar place. You know, you have Clan War papers. You should definitely get those. Any passes that you need into the tournaments. Keep a lanyard. If you ever go to a tournament, that is. If you don't, then of course you don't need that. But if you do, then it's something nice to have, and it's just cool to hang on to, I guess. Really nice though that it all just packs away regardless. I mean, I could change this up too. I could put these sideways. I've done that before. However, and what's really nice is if you get these card boxes I was talking about earlier. If you get these card boxes, you have enough to put all of your clans in the original box. I mean, of course it doesn't close, but they will all fit in the original box. So if you just are like, oh, I'm going to set it somewhere, this works. It kind of like looking at it, you can just tell what it is and you know what it's supposed to be, where you're putting it. So this is actually pretty compact for how big a card game this is. And believe me, I've seen way bigger. The people have Digimon. I have Digimon. I played it. I have a very small collection of it. I've seen people go have like bookshelves of it. You know, I feel like this is a very simple version of L5R. This is a lot, but not a little. And I have a lot. You know, I have my own special stuff I made for it. Like all my extra cards and stuff are in their own boxes, separated for a clan. You know, I made those boxes myself. So like all of that's different. But this is just a very simple way of playing the base game, having all your backup stuff for the base game, and then if you want to play an expansion, it's already in the box, everything ready. So I find that to be the easiest way to do it. If you have any better ideas or comments or questions, go ahead and post it. But thank you for watching. If you did, I hope you enjoyed it. As I said, please go and share, you know, the love of this game. Go tell people about L5R, play it. I have a whole bunch of the board games. The video game came out. I beat Shadow Veil's demo. It was pretty fun. Very cool. Go play it. Go use Emerald DB. You know, I'm not sponsored at all. I'm just doing this for my own fun. You know, I hope some other people do it too. You know, make their own videos, talk about it. Just keep the love of the card game alive. You know, I want to see, you know, more attention drawn to this, and maybe in the future, like updates or continuation, or maybe even a brand new card game. Something to keep Rokugan and the Legend of Five Rings just moving and flowing. You know, I'd like to see it alive and back as popular as it once was. You know, 2017, 2018, good years. But that's it for today. Thank you for watching. Have a good rest of your night.